Okay, so let's dig into this. You brought us, well, quite a stack of sources here. We're talking studies, research papers, meta-analyses, and they're all looking at this really interesting question. Does acupuncture actually, move the needle for IVF outcomes in vitro fertilization?
That's exactly it. And for this deep dive, our plan is really to just get straight to what these specific sources you shared are telling us. What's the data say about adding acupuncture into the mix with IVF?
Right, because the hook here, looking through these, some of the findings, the numbers being reported, they suggest potentially, well, pretty significant improvements in success rates.
Yeah, exactly. You look across these different papers, and there's definitely like a recurring theme, a signal suggesting a positive link between acupuncture and better results with IVF.
Okay, so let's get into that data you gave us. One of the really big ones you included, that was the meta-analysis from Archives of Gynecology and Obstetrics, 2023. What did that pull together?
Well, what's really important about that one is the scale. It's a
Yeah.
meta-analysis, right? So it pools data from lots of individual studies. Specifically, it looked at 25 randomized controlled trials that involved 4,757 participants altogether.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of data points.
It really is a substantial amount to analyze together.
So what did that big picture look like then? What were the main things it found?
It reported that acupuncture was associated with about a 33.8% increase in live birth rates. That's compared to the control groups, of course.
33.8% increase.
Yeah. The specific rates were 38.0% for the live birth rate in the acupuncture group versus 28.7% in the non-acupuncture group. And it also pointed to higher clinical pregnancy rates to 43.6% versus 33.2%.
Okay, a 33.8% bump in live births from that much data. That's pretty compelling. Now, shifting gears just a bit, you also gave us some maybe earlier but quite influential studies, like the Paulus study, Paulus et al. From 2002. That one comes up a lot.
It really does. It's often cited. It was a randomized controlled trial. 160 women took part, and they were randomly put into either the acupuncture group or control group. The key thing was the timing they did acupuncture right before and then immediately after the embryo transfer.
Right, that specific timing around the transfer.
Yeah.
And what did they see? What was the outcome?
So this source reported a clinical pregnancy rate of 42.5% in that acupuncture group, and that compared to 26.3% in the control group. Clinical pregnancy, usually confirmed by ultrasound, seeing the boost sac or a heartbeat early on.
42.5 versus 26.3.
Yeah.
That's a noticeable difference in that particular trial.
Mm-hmm.
You also included a more recent one, didn't you, from 2020? Taiwan Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology?
Yes, that's right. That was another randomized controlled trial, smaller, 72 women, and their protocol was a little different. They had 3 acupuncture sessions, one the week before the transfer, and then similar to Paulus, one just before and one just after the transfer itself.
Ah, okay, so an extra session beforehand. And their results, what did they show?
Well, they reported a clinical pregnancy rate, often that first sign is the beta-HCG hormone test, right, of 63.9% in the acupuncture group. That compared to 33.3% in the control group.
Wow, 63.9 versus 33.3.
Yeah, quite a difference. And they also found significantly higher live birth rates actually delivering a live baby. The paper noted the statistical significance even if the exact percentages weren't in the bit we saw.
That is a striking difference for clinical pregnancy in that study. Okay, and there was one more major review you shared, an earlier meta-analysis, Fertility and Sterility, 2008.
That one was a systematic review and meta-analysis. It pulled together 7 randomized controlled trials, about 1,366 participants. Its specific focus, interestingly, was acupuncture given only on the day of the embryo transfer, so very focused timing.
Just on transfer day. And what did it conclude based on that specific timing?
It also found improved clinical pregnancy rates, and it showed a trend sort of pointing towards higher live birth rates, too. It particularly flagged an 87% improvement in ongoing pregnancy rates when acupuncture happened right there on transfer day.
Okay, so try to put all this together now, based just on these specific sources you provided for us. We're seeing multiple studies, right, including these big meta-analyses, and they seem to be, well, consistently pointing towards potential improvements. Improvements in both clinical pregnancy and live birth rates when acupuncture is used with IVF, often, like you said, timed very specifically around the embryo transfer.
That's exactly the signal that seems to come through from this collection of sources, yeah. A potential positive effect on those really crucial outcomes. And, while the exact numbers, the percentages, they do vary a bit from study to study, the overall trend across this particular set of research does suggest a benefit that's, well, worth paying attention to.
So what does this collection tell us then? Why should you care about this?
Well, based on the sources we've just walked through, several studies and these large meta-analyses are suggesting that acupuncture, especially when it's timed around that embryo transfer window, might lead to higher clinical pregnancy and, importantly, live birth rates compared to control groups. We saw numbers like that. 33.8% increase in live births in one big review, and those other trials showing significantly higher clinical pregnancy rates like 42.5% versus 26.3%, or even that striking 63.9% versus 33.3%.
Right. And this deep dive, I think, really helped pull out those specific findings, didn't it? And put them in the context of the kinds of studies they came from, the RCTs, the meta-analyses. Absolutely. So considering these results, where you have multiple studies all sort of pointing in a similar direction, suggesting a potential benefit, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might figuring out the mechanisms like the actual biological or physiological reasons how acupuncture might influence fertility, how might that become the next big step in optimizing these treatments? And what is this potential link, between a traditional practice like acupuncture and a modern medical intervention like IVF? What does it imply about that really complex relationship between, say, the mind, the body, and how well our medical treatments work? Definitely something for you to think about as you digest these findings.